In the 1800s, one family accumulated more money than any family in the history of the world: Cornelius Vanderbilt. Adjusted for inflation, his net worth reached somewhere around $500 billion. $500 billion. The railroads, the real estate, the empire, it was untouchable. And then his heirs were given one job. One single instruction passed down through generations. Spend it. Live as large as humanly possible. Marble palaces on Fifth Avenue. Private yachts. Ballrooms that could fit entire city blocks. The most ostentatious, extravagant lifestyle the world had ever seen. By every definition, they were the richest people alive. And by almost every account, they were miserable. Every single one of them. There is a book written by one of the Vanderbilt heirs himself, describing one of the saddest family stories ever told. Because these people who were handed $500 million the day they were born, people you and I might look at and say, "You are so lucky," had no control over their own lives. Who they married, where they lived, what they were allowed to become. All of it was dictated by the social machinery of the family's empire. They were rich beyond imagination. And they had zero independence. That is the difference between being rich and being wealthy. And by the end of this video, you will never confuse the two again. My name is MM, and welcome to Wealth with MM, where we go deeper than the spreadsheets and into the psychology that actually determines your financial future. Today, I'm going to walk you through 8 signs that separate being wealthy from just being rich. Today, we're unpacking one of the most important distinctions in personal finance. A distinction that most people spend their entire lives chasing the wrong side of. Being rich is having the money to buy the things you want. Being wealthy is having the freedom to live the life you actually choose. They are not the same thing. And understanding the gap between them will change the way you think about every financial decision you make from this point forward. Sign 1. Let's define the two clearly, because most people use these words interchangeably. And that's exactly where the confusion starts. Being rich means you have the income to cover your lifestyle. You can make the mortgage payment, lease the car, eat at the restaurants, take the vacations. The numbers work. On paper, you look successful. Being wealthy is something different. Wealth is the money you are not spending. It is savings. It is investments sitting quietly, not being touched, but working for you in the background. It is the ability to wake up on a Monday morning and choose whether or not you go to work. Not because you hate your job, but because you could walk away and you'd be okay. Wealth is not about what you have. It is about what you can choose. And here is the uncomfortable truth. You can be rich without being wealthy. In fact, millions of people are doing exactly that right now. According to a 2025 Goldman Sachs report, 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 live paycheck to paycheck. Read that again. Nearly half of people earning close to $500,000 a year feel like they have no financial cushion whatsoever. They are rich. They are not wealthy, because every dollar that comes in goes right back out. And the moment the income stops, so does everything else. Sign 2. Back to the Vanderbilts. Because this story is not just history. It is the most extreme version of a trap that millions of ordinary people fall into every single day, just with smaller numbers. Cornelius Vanderbilt built the fortune. He was a self-made man, driven, relentless, genuinely brilliant at what he did. But what he passed down to his children was not just money. He passed down a lifestyle so large, so expensive, so demanding to maintain, that his heirs became servants to it. The palaces needed staff, hundreds of them. The yachts needed crews. The social obligations, the galas, the appearances, all of it cost money that had to keep flowing every single month to keep the whole machine running. And so the heirs were not free. They were trapped by the very wealth they had been born into. Within 2 generations, the fortune had started to shrink. Within 4 generations, it was essentially gone. The family that had once been worth $500 billion held a reunion at Vanderbilt University in 1973, and not one of the 120 family members who attended was a millionaire. $500 billion. Gone. In roughly 100 years. Because they were rich. They were never wealthy. Sign 3. Here is where the story gets interesting. By the time we reach the modern era, the Vanderbilt fortune has largely evaporated, and the first heir in the family's history to receive no significant inheritance. The first Vanderbilt in over 150 years who was told, "You're on your own, go figure it out," was Anderson Cooper. His mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, was one of the last to receive a meaningful trust fund. And Anderson Cooper has spoken openly about what it meant to grow up knowing that no inheritance was coming, that he would have to build his own career, earn his own money, create his own path. He has described it as one of the best things that ever happened to him. Think about that. The heir to the most storied fortune in American history considers not receiving that fortune to be a gift. Because for the first time in his family's history, he had independence. He had a reason to work. He had the experience of building something for himself. And the identity, the purpose, and the freedom that comes from that. He was the least rich Vanderbilt in a century. He was arguably the wealthiest, in the only way that actually matters. There is a line that stops people when they first hear it. It comes from one of the most respected financial thinkers alive today. You can be one of the richest people in the world and have zero independence. And the reverse is also true. You can have a modest income, a modest home, a modest life, and wake up every single morning completely free. Independence is not a number. It is a feeling. It is a story you tell yourself about how in control of your own life you actually are. And here is what most people miss. That feeling is within your reach right now, regardless of your income. If you understand the difference between what you need and what you are trying to prove. Sign 4. Here is a question worth sitting with. Imagine you are on a deserted island. Just you and your family. No neighbors, no co-workers, no Instagram feed. No one to see your house, your car, your clothes, your watch. Completely invisible to the outside world. What kind of lifestyle would you actually choose? Because here is what happens when you run that thought experiment honestly. Status disappears, and utility takes over. The car that impressed people in the parking lot becomes just a car. The house that signaled success to your neighborhood becomes just a shelter. The wardrobe that said, "I've made it," becomes just clothing. And what you actually want, what you would genuinely choose if no one was watching, is probably a fraction of what you are currently spending to perform your success for an audience that is not paying nearly as much attention as you think. Most of what we buy, we do not buy for ourselves. We buy it for the version of ourselves we want other people to see. Wealthy people have figured this out, and it completely changes their relationship with money. Sign 5. There's a story about a young valet at a 5-star hotel in Los Angeles, just 19 years old, parking Ferraris and Lamborghinis for guests. And he noticed something. When a Ferrari pulled up, he would stop and look at the car. He would be genuinely impressed by it. But he would never look at the driver and think, "That person is so cool." What he would actually do, without even realizing it, was imagine himself behind the wheel. Picture himself driving away. Think about how people would look at him if that were his car. Then one day it hit him. He didn't care about the driver. He just wanted to be the driver, because he believed that if he were, people would think he was impressive. But he was the living proof that they wouldn't. He was standing right there, parking the car, and he was not thinking about the driver at all. He was thinking about himself. This is what is happening in every parking lot, every neighborhood, every Instagram comment section, all the time. When people see your house, they are not thinking about you. They are imagining themselves in your house. When people see your car, they are not impressed by you. They are imagining what it would feel like to drive it themselves. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you are. And once that lands, really lands, the desire to spend money impressing strangers collapses. Because you realize you have been paying an enormous, ongoing price for an audience that was never actually watching. Sign 6. There's a sharp observation from a comedian that fits perfectly here. Everybody is jealous of what you've got. Nobody is jealous of how you got it. When you look at someone who is more successful, more visible, more decorated than you, you see the outcome. The house, the car, the title, the lifestyle. And you think, if I had that, I would be happier. What you do not see is the 15-year grind, the failed ventures, the relationships that suffered, the health that was sacrificed, the anxiety that lives behind the visible success, the cost of admission that never shows up in the highlight reel. And so envy is always based on incomplete information. You are coveting an edited version of someone else's life, the version they chose to make visible, while your own life, the unedited version, feels like it doesn't measure up. This is why social media has made financial anxiety worse than it has ever been in human history. It is not that people have less. It is that the comparison group has expanded from your neighborhood to the entire internet, filtered, curated, and algorithmically optimized to show you the most aspirational version of every life except your own. Your grandparents compared themselves to their neighbors, maybe a handful of people they saw on television. That was the whole group. You compare yourself to millions of people, every single day, whose lives you are only seeing at their very best. No wonder nothing ever feels like enough. Sign 7. Here is a true story that reframes everything. Picture a grandmother who had very little money her entire life. By conventional financial metrics, she would not register. No investment portfolio. No real estate. No notable assets. But she was beholden to no one. She woke up every morning and did exactly what she chose to do. Her time was her own. Her decisions were her own. Her identity was her own. No employer owned her. No debt owned her. No social performance owned her. By any honest definition, she was one of the wealthiest people you could ever know. Now contrast that with the multi-billionaires who have more money than they could spend in 100 lifetimes, but are completely controlled by the opinions of others, who need the approval of boards, investors, media cycles, public perception, who cannot say what they actually think, go where they actually want to go, or live how they actually want to live, because every move is calculated for an audience. More money than anyone, less freedom than her. Wealth is independence, and independence at its core is a feeling. A story you tell yourself about how much of your life actually belongs to you. That feeling is available at almost any income level, if your expectations and your spending are aligned. Sign 8. Every dollar you spend falls into one of two buckets. And if you get honest about which bucket you're really spending from, everything becomes clearer. Bucket 1. You are spending this money to make yourself and your family genuinely happier. Bucket 2. You are spending this money to impress other people, most of whom are strangers, most of whom are not paying attention. That's it. Every purchase, every upgrade, every subscription, every status symbol, it always traces back to one of those two motivations. And the second question is equally simple. Are you using money as a tool to live a better life, or as a yardstick to measure yourself against other people? A tool gives you something. A yardstick just tells you whether you're ahead or behind. And on that particular yardstick, you will always be behind, because there will always be someone with a bigger number. Wealthy people use money as a tool. They spend on what genuinely makes their lives better, and they cut ruthlessly everywhere else. Not because they can't afford it, because they have decided that independence is worth more to them than the performance of success. Let me ask you something directly. Would you rather earn $70,000 a year, with a life your kids admire you for, a marriage that is genuinely good, weekends that actually feel like rest, and health that isn't falling apart? Or would you rather earn $1 million a year, on your third divorce, estranged from your children, in terrible health, and completely owned by the machine you built? When you frame it like that, the answer is obvious. Everyone knows the answer. And yet, the pull is still there. You still think you might be the exception. You still think the $1 million would be worth it. Because the promise of more money is so easy to imagine, and the costs are always invisible until you are living them. This is the trap. This is what the Vanderbilts fell into, at the most extreme scale imaginable. And this is what millions of ordinary people fall into every single day, just with smaller numbers and quieter consequences. Being rich is having the income to cover your lifestyle. Being wealthy is having the freedom to design it. One of those is available to you right now, regardless of what you earn, regardless of what your starting point is, regardless of what the algorithm on your phone is telling you that you should want. The only thing standing between you and financial independence is the gap between what you have and what you expect. Narrow that gap, and you win. One of the wealthiest investors alive still lives in the same modest house he bought back in 1958, even though his net worth approaches $150 billion today. Quietly, every single day, winning. Subscribe, because next time, we are going even deeper. We are talking about the one habit that separates people who feel wealthy from people who always feel behind. And it has nothing to do with how much you earn.